Okay, I'd like to call the August 10th meeting of the Placer County Planning Commission to order. And so I would like to invite you all to join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll do a roll call.
Good morning. How about Mr. Arcuri?
Here.
Mr. Haber?
Here.
Mr. Rokuchi?
Here.
Mr. Nader?
Here.
Mr. Sevison? Mr. Moss? And Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, report from our planning director. Mr. Rivaldo.
So we'll go with that.
You're on now.
I am? Perfect. So good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission. E.J. Baldi with the Planning Services Division. I was going to welcome everybody in Tahoe, but seeing that I see no one there, we'll just keep an eye out. Oh, there is someone coming around. Alex is there. She's one of our staff up in Tahoe. So thanks, Alex. And we'll keep an eye out for if anybody else shows up during the meeting. So over the last couple months, we've been working on, my staff has been working on some updates to the zoning code, specifically secondary dwellings, and also the water efficiency landscape ordinance. We've been presenting that to all the municipal advisory councils. I think we're all done with that. This is, for the most part, bringing everything current with existing state law. We plan to bring this to your commission on August 24th, which is 2 weeks from now, and that meeting will be down here in Auburn. The third zoning text amendment that we're working on is kind of a comprehensive update. It covers a vast majority of the ordinance, just trying to simplify some of the items in there: development standards, setbacks, lot coverage, nuisance abatement hearings. There's a bunch of things, but general cleanup. We're just starting now to take that to the max, and so I anticipate bringing that back to your commission this fall sometime. So by the end of the year, our hope is to have a good, clean, updated zoning code. Let's see, next week, well, before I get there, let me talk about the following meeting after the 24th is September 14th. I'm not going to promise you, but we are anticipating a meeting in Tahoe to hear draft EIR comments on the Alpine Sierra subdivision. So that is our plan right now, and I hope I can stick to that one this time. And then next week, we're going to be right here in this chamber in front of the Board of Supervisors for the Jurgers 20 subdivision appeal. This, of course, is the project that your commission approved and then was subsequently appealed by the neighbors. So I'll report back after that meeting and at the next commission. And just one last note, when we get to the consent agenda, staff is going to be asking for a couple items to be pulled off to make some minor corrections to conditions. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. And that's really all I have today. So if you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Am I on there? During the zoning appeals stuff that you earlier talked about, sorting out and getting corrections to and stuff, is any thought given in that process to the renting of residential homes and subdivisions for vacation use?
You know, whether or not that's going to be part of our bigger housing discussion that's going on, that's something else that went to the board earlier this week. There's a new housing plan that was approved by the board, which is pretty comprehensive. Covers obviously, affordable housing, workforce housing, but all the intricacies that, related to that. That may be something that we can bring to the commission just as an information item. That's being handled by the CEO's office, also CEDRA, but that may be something that would be of value to you. Just get up to speed what the county is working on and all the nuances of that.
Well, it would be helpful for me particularly because of my serving for the county on TRPA, because it's a very big item in that region and in particular. And I would be very interested in a position that the county might take for that, particularly in the Tahoe Basin, because I've gotten just tons of complaints, not necessarily about the use, but one of the offshoots is they rent these homes in residential areas, and then they have 50 cars show up for a wedding every weekend, and the neighbors are getting pretty tired of it. And that's just a piece of it, but there's a lot more than that that's starting to brew, and it might be good if we could talk about it and get a county position. Maybe regionally, it may be something we have to do as a regional thing, not for the whole county, you know.
Well, not that it gives you any comfort. It is an issue that is statewide. We're following it on our side through our county council organization, and it's being discussed widely as to what strategies to use. So I know that especially the CO's office in Tahoe, along with CEDRA, are looking at that entire issue. It's a big one, but it's certainly on the radar.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, we're at TRPA.
A great idea.
Almost every meeting, we get a pretty big segment of the audience complaining about this in communities. And it's difficult, you know. I'm sympathetic to both sides, I guess, but I can understand seasonally it gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
And
For
so
sure.
I'm not sure exactly how to deal with it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, now's the time for public comment. If anybody has a comment on anything other than anything that's on the agenda today, you're sure welcome to come forward. Not seeing any action in the audience.
I noticed there is an individual up in Tahoe. You might ask if anybody in Tahoe wants to speak during public comment. Apparently, no.
Okay.
It's Alan. Apparently, my eyesight's worse than ever.
I don't know if he's staying or if he's going. Bye. Yeah. Okay, well, seeing none, then we'll move on. Let me see, consent agenda, I guess we're down to one item, which would be the action agenda for July 13th. So is there a motion? Motion for approval?
Second.
Okay, roll call?
I have a first by Mr. Sevison and a second by Mr. Nader. Is that correct? Okay, so Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison? Mr. Moss? Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and here I have a question, I guess, for staff. We have a timed item, and we also have two consent items that were pulled off the agenda. What do you want to do first?
Your preference, obviously, but I think we can run through the consent items rather quickly since they are basically just minor corrections that we're making.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with Pond Pavilion Lofts, is that it?
Yes. Good morning,
Okay.
Commissioners. Chris Schmidt with the Planning Services Division. Before you today is a request by Powers Equity Incorporated for a 2-year extension of time on their approved Pond Pavilions and Lofts project in Granite Bay. The project site is on the south side of Douglas Boulevard near Berg Street, adjacent to the Quarry Ponds Retail Center. Neighboring zoning is RA B100 to the south and to the east. To the west is general commercial, and across Douglas Boulevard is residential single family. Couple sites photos. This shows the interim parking lot that was recently closed that fronts along Douglas Boulevard. And looking into the site, the habitat on the site is a mixture of grasses, smaller trees, and shrubs. This is the site plan that was approved 2 years ago. It's a 5.2 acre site. Includes a 7,500 square foot event center on the south near the lake, and 2 single-story office buildings totaling 23,600 square feet of space. That's the approved site plan. Also approved by the board at that time was a general plan amendment to change the land use designation from rural residential to professional office, a rezoning to office professional, design scenic corridor, the tentative parcel map, and also 3 variances: reduced parking, reduced pond setback, and 2 freestanding signs along Douglas Boulevard were approved. The entitlements by the board were approved on June 15, 2017. The applicant applied for an extension on June 8th, so right before the entitlements expired. Last fall, the applicant came in for a minor land division to change the site plan, at least for the office portion of the property. So instead of 2 large buildings, they received approval to modify that to 4 smaller buildings. With the 2-year extension of time, the new expiration date would be June 16th, 2019. So we're extending the original approval. The applicant is working diligently on this site plan to lock in those entitlements, but she needs the original approval extended to give her some time to continue working towards this. The applicant has advised the county that she will be coming to the county in the future to revise the plans for the event center. She's no longer going to be doing that. We'll be working with her on that revision when she's ready. One sharp-eyed commissioner noticed a mistake in the conditions. We had an old date. This originally was supposed to go to you last month, but that meeting was canceled, so we had to correct that date to August 10th, 2017, and that's in condition number 1. And with that, staff recommends you approve the 2-year extension of time, relying on the previously adopted mitigated negative declaration and conditions of approval as modified, subject to the findings found in the staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Applicant here? Anything to add?
No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the public? Okay, well, we'll bring it back to the commission.
Chairman, real quick, I just want to make a point that the conditions, the numbering it needs to be modified just to conform, so all the numbers conform to the correct conditions. So we would ask you to make that change as well.
Okay.
I have a question.
What?
Are they going to have to come back again to the commission or the county for reapproval as they change the use on the front part?
No, the front portion of the property is approved. Anything, if you remember, part of the site involved an event center on the back portion of the property. Any changes to that would require, a modified entitlement, and that would have to go back to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion, we approve the 2-year extension of time request in reliance on the previously adopted mitigated negative declaration and conditions of approval as modified, subject to findings found in the staff report and the errata. And I'm sorry, EJ, what else did we need to make sure was included in this? The renumbering of the conditions? Okay, then that'd be my motion. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci? Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison? Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And that was a motion by Mr. Moss and a second by Mr. Rokucci.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to take a look at the Premier Granite Bay Townhomes extension of time.
That's correct. The second extension of time before you is for the Premier Granite Bay Townhomes project in Granite Bay. Project site is 8.2 acres on the north side of Douglas Boulevard, just east of Auburn Folsom Road. Zoning adjacent and south, commercial, so neighborhood commercial to the west, commercial plan development to the south, residential single family to the north and to the east. A few site photos. The property is currently used as a boat sales and storage facility. The rest of it is vacant. The project site plan, 8.2 acres with 52 duplex townhouse units with 1.4 acres of open space proposed. They do have individual lots. You'll see in the yellow, the units do control the land around them. The lot sizes are 2,900 to 5,300 square feet. This project was approved back in October in 2007, received several automatic state extensions. Their current expiration date is October 23rd, and the applicant applied for an extension on June 13th. And the proposed expiration date with the 2-year extension would be October 23rd of 2019. We do have the condition changes again, the new date, and also modifications to the numbering that will be made when we reformat the conditions. With that, staff recommends approval of a 2-year extension of time, relying on the previously adopted mitigated negative declaration, and the conditions of approval is modified subject to the findings found in the staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Applicant here? Any further comments? Okay, thank you. Public? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Oh, we have a person, okay. Sorry about that.
I just had a couple questions regarding the project. My name is Jill Larkin, and I'm in Granite Bay. I'm right next door to the subject property. I just have some questions because we have lived there for 17 years, and part of the reason we moved there is because it was open space. There were no streetlights. There was not much traffic. It was quiet. So I'm concerned how 52 new neighbors are going to impact me and my life as I have it at the moment. I currently look into a wooded area when I pull out my driveway. So I'm curious what the outside of this property is going to look like. I'm sure it's going to be fenced off in some manner, and I'd like to know how that is going to be handled. I'm curious as to when construction would actually start and how long it will take. Because, like I said, having property right next door, I'm going to get dirt, I'm going to get dust, I'm going to get noise. So that's another question I have. Wildlife relocation. There's tons of wildlife living in those trees, those bushes. They're all going to run to my yard when that construction starts. So I'm curious if there's going to be anything done about trying to find them new homes rather than under my house. My other concern is they're all 2-story buildings. There's no 2-story buildings in the area. They're all 1-story ranch-style houses. It doesn't fit with the plan of the area. So I was concerned how and wondering how that got approved so now I have people looking down into my yard. There's a natural water flow that runs downhill, and it goes right across under Melwood and into that property. So I'm concerned about drainage. There was flooding on Melwood this past winter with all the rain that we got. So if we get another winter like that, I'm concerned about the drainage and backing up once again into our yards and to the people that live behind Melwood, because that's even further down on that L on the back of Melwood. They're even lower than we are, and it runs down Melwood into their driveways, into their properties. So I'm concerned about that. I understand there'll be streetlights. We don't have streetlights where we live. It's nice and quiet and dark at night. There's not a lot of foot traffic, so there's not a lot of lights needed. Will the streetlights be directional into the complex, or will I have my yard lit up all night with streetlights? And then another thing is, what is the selling price of these units? They're duplexes. I understand they're fairly good square footage, but once again, I'd like to know what this is going to do to my property value. So those are my questions, and I hope they can all be answered.
Okay, well, I guess,
There's a lot of them, and I understand
Yeah.
this is probably already approved, but these are questions I don't have answered yet.
okay, were you able to read the staff report?
That was that however many multiple page report that is online.
Right.
I've read some of
I
it.
think there's copies here in the room someplace too, that if you didn't get one, or you can have my copy.
Okay.
But at any rate, I think your questions were, it's been many years, I think, what do you say,
It was 10 years ago,
10 years ago?
right when they were trying to do the garage condos also. That was
Yeah.
kind of coinciding, trying to figure out what to do with the property that would best benefit the owner to recoup his value of building.
Okay, so basically, at that time, the issues that you're bringing up, hopefully were addressed that time, and they would be answered in the conditions in the staff report.
Okay.
And so what I'd recommend is that you take a look at the staff report for the conditions. Our hearing today is really the only question that we're addressing is extension of time, and if there were significant changes from when the previous project was approved.
Right, I was hoping
And
to
so,
get some answers
Huh?
by coming. I was hoping I would get some answers to my questions that are still unanswered from
Yeah.
that time when the subdivision was first proposed.
yeah, well, I would recommend you look at the conditions of approval and see if your answers are in there.
Okay, who would I contact if I don't find the answers to my questions? Who would I contact regarding this?
Well,
Get the
I think
answers.
Okay. Okay, Chris, would you like to answer?
Sure, I can run down a few of those. The fence, I believe this isn't really showing up. You're just to the southeast corner.
Yes, we're
Along-
right across Melwood where the first property.
So the lane, or the fencing along that private road here is proposed as open view fencing,
Okay, what is that?
wrought iron slotted fence.
Okay,
If you have a preference for solid fencing, we would look at that when they come in for improvement plans,
okay.
even though it's not conditioned at this time to have solid fencing.
Okay, but wrought iron with landscaping?
It would be, you can see the green landscape strip on most of that
Okay.
border, but wrought iron fencing that you could see through.
What will be in the back, where it turns and goes back behind the project? Will that be the same kind of
I
fencing?
think that solid wood fencing on the north, and then the frontage along Douglas is going to be a masonry wall.
Okay,
Street lighting internally will have to comply with our dark sky requirements. It'll be it won't be tall, probably 20, 25 feet directed downward. The start of work and how long construction lasts is really up to the developer. I know they're working on plans, but it'll be market driven, I imagine.
will it be
Probably,
in stages or
it
phases?
would be up to the developer to decide if it's phased or all done at once. The wildlife relocation issue would be addressed in the conditions. There's a condition for bird nesting surveys before work starts. Two-story buildings, I think they proposed two-story. They could always change. It's not conditioned to have only two-story, so that could be worked out with the applicant. If they have one-story units, can we push them to put those one stories along the project borders where they have neighbors?
So, Chris, I think that was addressed too in our previous hearing on this.
Yeah.
Some of the structures were addressed as far as their two-story nature. Okay.
So they wouldn't all be two-story, that there could be some one-stories in this?
I think
along
at the
fence lines?
time when it was proposed, they did all two stories, but that could change. If a new developer buys it, they can always modify what was originally proposed and wouldn't have to come back to hearing. Selling prices would also be developer-driven. We don't know the selling prices of the units.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, thank you.
and if you'd like my copy.
I would love to have your copy. Thank you. Are there cups? Oh, I don't have to have yours then. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
May I speak also?
Yeah.
I'm a neighbor, as she is, on Wilcox Place. My name's Jerry Llewellyn, and I have been involved with the previous, I'm not sure that who is the owner of it now, but I signed an easement agreement for the septic system, the sewer system, I should say, running through my property. You familiar with that?
I'm not.
Okay. And I'm wondering if there's changes for that, because the property that's under consideration here is lower than the Douglas Boulevard. And they'd have to put in a pumping system for the sewer. And they chose to contract with me to run the sewer through my property, and easement into our sewer system on on Wilcox Place. And I wondered if that is still considered, because I haven't really been contacted on that. The other issue is my property is where as the lady mentioned, the drainage system, it goes right through my property. And there were conditions that the previous owners for the proposed property would mitigate that drainage. They were going to have pump stations there for retention stations for the drainage, and then it would run through my property through a nice basin there, and they were going to do improvements on that. And my question is that still considered?
The plans are today as what was adopted previously. So those conditions and those plans are what would be carried forward at this point. The applicant may be able to answer some details if anything has changed or they're anticipating changes. But what was approved back 10 years ago is the current plan.
I believe we need to talk about the easement arrangements, because I think if that's still your intention.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any more? Okay, applicant, would you like to address any of the things that came up, or? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, absent any discussion, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the 2-year extension of time request in reliance on the previously adopted mitigated negative declaration and conditions of approval as modified, subject to the findings in the staff report and the renumbering of conditions and from the change of date in the errata.
Second.
Okay. Any more? Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Okay, I have a first by Mr. Moss and a second by Mr. Nader. So Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci? Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll move on to our 10:05 item, which is the Placer Vineyard specific plan. Actually, first development phase, property 19, small lot vesting tentative subdivision map.
Good morning. I'm Nick Trefero, Senior Planner with the Planning Services Division. So the item I have before you today is the Placer Vineyards Property 19 small lot vesting tentative subdivision map. I'll start off just giving you a little background on the Placer Vineyard specific plan itself. The property is located in the southwest corner of Placer County. It's approximately 15 miles north of the city of Sacramento. It's also located in the Dry Creek Community Plan. Here's the land use diagram you see before you. Placer Vineyard's specific plan actually covers 5,230 acres, includes ultimate development of 14,132 units, and that would occur basically over a 20 to 30-year time frame. So the plan was approved back in 2007. It was also amended in 2012 and 2015. Went through a comprehensive environmental review process, including certification of an EIR, mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And also, since 2007, there was a number of master plans you see listed here to address the specific plan itself, such as the sewer master plan, drainage master plan, some other public facility conceptual financing plans. So this depicts the Phase 1 development project property areas. So the properties under Phase 1, which were approved by your Planning Commission on June 8th, cover a 1,535-acre portion of the plan area. They include properties 1A, 3, portion of 4B, property 7, 12B, 15, and a portion of 19. So the phasing plan basically addresses the common infrastructure, the backbone infrastructure that serves all the properties. Also addresses secondary roadways, water, sewer, drainage, and other improvements. So again, here's the land use plan showing where these properties fall. Currently, there's 3 active applicants moving forward with subdivisions. Property 7, which was approved by your commission on July 13th, is moving forward. We also have property 12B. And of course, today we're presenting, what's being proposed today is the property 19 small lot tentative map. So this tentative map covers 532.6 acres. The map's divided into 712 lots. 138 are low-density residential, 518 medium-density residential. There's also one lot with 82 high-density residential units. And the size of the lots vary on these from 4,725 to 5,250 square feet. Other on-site amenities include a commercial mixed-use lot, 2 neighborhood parks, 3 open space lots, 2 schools, a religious site, cemetery site, 2 water tank site lots. So here's the vicinity map showing the property falls in the western portion of the specific plan area. It's zoned Placer Vineyard specific plan. And here's an aerial showing basically Paladay Road forms the eastern boundary of the property, and to the north is Baseline Road. A little further to the south is, if you could see in this aerial, is the Placer County, Sacramento County line. So this is the land use diagram for the property. As I mentioned, there's the low density. You'll see in the light yellow, it's on the southern part of the map, right here. Then the darker yellow is the medium density. And then the high density lot is over to the northwest side. It's over by this is going to be the proposed Dyer Lane, which would connect Baseline Road to Paladay on the south end. So the high-density residential lot would actually work to meet the 10% affordable housing requirement, so by providing 80 affordable units. There's also, just to the south, you'll see in pink, is the commercial mixed-use lot that would provide for 57 units. Also proposed are the 2 neighborhood parks you'll see over by the west side of Paladay Road here. And there'll be joint use facilities with the middle school here to the north and then elementary school. Other facilities include a Class 1 trail that runs along Dyer Lane, Paladay Road, and also this open space corridor you see here in the center of the property. Then there's a fire station proposed just west of Paladay Road, a religious site just adjacent to it, and a cemetery lot. Also a corporation yard right in the center of the property right here. And the 2 water tank sites would be located on the fire station and cemetery lots. So there's a number of on-site and off-site improvements that are required for the development, broken out into various phases for the on-site improvements. The main access for the property would be off of Baseline and Paladay here, and there'll be a signalized intersection. From there, construction of improvements to Paladay Road will occur, and also West Town Center Drive, A Street, and the northern portion of Dyer Lane. And there would also be some signalization on Paladay Road and roundabouts. With Phase 2, and all these Phase 1 improvements, you could see it's kind of blurry on the screen, but it's this northern portion of the property in blue. Phase 2 would be the construction of Southtown Center Drive in the center here. That's an internal roadway, and that will provide basically direct access to the school sites. And then the last phase would be, you see in orange, the southern portion of Dyer Lane, here connecting to Paladay, and then B Drive, which is another internal road that runs adjacent to the parks and open space. So then the internal roadways would include, where needed, sound walls and fences and other landscape improvements, and they would be maintained by the Community Facilities District. Also, there would be a storm drainage improvements just to the south of Dyer Lane and the open space, the undeveloped lot. So in terms of off-site improvements, I'll go back to the access on the property. So access would be from Paladay Road and Baseline. It would actually come down south on Paladay and then loop off-site to Southtown Center Drive. I'm not sure if you could see it really well. It's in orange here, but this is Southtown Center Drive. And then it would loop back up to 14th Street and up to Baseline. So this would be constructed in partnership with the other adjacent property owners, such as Property 7. Water connection would be with existing Cal-Am Services water supply line located at Willerga and Baseline Roads. Sewer connection would be, you see in the purple, would be connecting to the Dry Creek wastewater treatment plant. And also a lift station would be located south of Dyer Lane in Property 16. Some other off-site storm drainage would occur in the open space area. You could see it here on Property 15, and also to the west of Dyer Lane, you can see in green. So in terms of CEQA compliance, as I mentioned, the specific plan EIR was certified back in 2007 and had some three subsequent addenda adopted. Given that CEQA allows through sections 15182 and 15183 subsequent conformity reviews to be performed. With this review basically allows county staff to rely on this past environmental documentation to determine if the development is consistent with the specific plan and if no changes have been made since the environmental documents were adopted. To perform this, staff prepared an environmental checklist. You'll see some attachment C to your staff report. And that looked at if there was any new impacts with this project since the prior EIR. We also prepared a policy consistency review checklist. It's at attachment D to your staff report. And that was a way for us to look if there was any issues with consistency with existing specific plan policies. Based on staff's review, it was concluded that there was no significant changes that have occurred, so further environmental review is not required. Also, public outreach, West Placer Mac, it went to West Placer Mac on May 10th as an informational item. Also went back on June 14th as an action item, and they voted unanimously by a 3-0 vote on the project. Just want to note there were some concerns raised on noise impacts along Baseline Road and also some lighting concerns, and then also potential conflicts between the urban-rural interface with the special plan area. With that, I'm able to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Applicant?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Jim Ray, and I'm with McKay and Sopp Civil Engineers, who have worked on this specific plan for many years in this particular project to bring it to you. And here with me today are the applicants, Julie Hansen, representing A&B Holdings, Baseline Holdings, and Sean McDermott from Lennar Communities. First, I'd like to thank the staff for getting this to this point today. And the hard work that was put in by all the staff members. We're in agreement with all the conditions of approval, and I want to just remind you, I think Nick mentioned this, it's consistent with the approved specific plan and consistent with the recently adopted development phasing program. With that, we have nothing else to comment on, but we'd be happy to answer any questions the Commission has or any questions that come up during public testimony.
Okay.
I just have one question. On the water from Cal-Am, are they on surface water, or are they pumping out of the ground?
They'll purchase surface water from PCWA. They have an agreement to purchase surface water. Yes.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Never see any, I'll open up to public comment if there's anybody here with public comment. Seeing none, I guess I'll bring it back to the Commission. Unless the applicant would like to say anything more. No?
I don't think they would.
No, I don't think so.
No, I just have a comment. I did meet with Lennar Homes, and some of the items that I discussed as a previous small lot that we discussed several weeks ago was this whole issue about how you get traffic out of the subdivision when some of the connecting roads aren't quite there yet. And And he did tell me that analysis in this report did analyze that to make sure they had a couple, and it was reviewed by the applicant or by our staff about how they were gonna get out of there, but, so I thought that was important. And just another comment, how many times do we have a elementary and a middle school sitting right next to one another? Seems like the traffic there might be an issue, especially at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I'm just raising that as an issue. I just thought that might be interesting to maybe have the applicant discuss that traffic, or maybe it was analyzed with those two schools sitting right next to one another there. So that was my only comments. Okay, we got somebody comes up like they want to answer that question or at least comment.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Pat Kernan. I'm with the law firm of Kingsley Bogart, and we represent both Alberta and Center Unified School Districts. And Center is perfectly content with the two sightings. They think they can handle the traffic, and both districts are in support of the project with the conditions. And I also want to commend the developers have reached out, and we've been in great communication. We've got some homework assignments on our end, and that's the reason why we're still working on one of our agreements where the holdup. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, well, I guess if we have a motion, we could take it right now. Looking around here.
I'm going to have to read it off of this one. Okay, we'll take two. I will start with. I move that we determine the potential impacts of property 19 small lot vesting tentative subdivision map, which is part of Placer Vineyard's specific plan, first development phase, are within the scope of analysis of the 2007 certified Placer Vineyard's final environmental impact report, supported by the findings contained within the staff report.
Okay, use the word determine. Have we done this?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're approving that, right? Okay. All right, just wanted to make that little correction.
Okay.
So, and we had a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, roll call.
So I have a first by Mr. Arcuri and a second by Mr. Moss. We'll ask Mr. Arcuri.
Yes.
Mr. Haber.
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison. Mr. Moss. Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, further move, we approve the Placer Vineyards Property 19 small lot vesting tentative subdivision map that will create 712 lots within the previously approved Placer Vineyards specific plan area, subject to the condition of approval and supported by the findings contained within the staff report.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second. And I anticipate no discussion at this point. So we'll call for the question.
Okay, I have a first and a second by Mr. Arcuri and Mr. Moss. So, Mr. Arcuri.
Yes.
Mr. Haber.
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci.
Yes.
Mr. Nader.
Yes.
Mr. Sevison. Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, well, congratulations. And you see, we have one more item, though, that we have to address. So thank you, folks. So the next one must be pretty controversial, huh? Okay, so we have Steve from Tahoe.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Steve Yolna from Planning Services Division, Tahoe. I know him too. The item before you today was a request for to consider a appeal to the denial of a variance modification. Subsequent to the noticing for the appeal for the hearing today, we received a request from the applicant to continue it to October 26th to a date time certain, if your commission should so choose.
Did they give a reason, Steve?
They were unable to attend today.
Conflict of conflict in their schedule, that's what it said anyway. Someplace.
I thought maybe they were trying to negotiate something. And the recommended time certain is October 26th? Is that correct?
I would refer to the clerk, but probably 10:05.
10:05? And we'll fill the room up next time, right? I'm looking at it in front of you here.
Just for my review, what are they appealing here again?
They had requested a modification of one of the conditions of approval from a variance that was approved many years ago. That request was denied by the zoning administrator, and they're appealing that decision.
Okay, what were they trying to change?
There was a condition attached to the variance that required payment of fees for the deficiency to offset the deficiency in parking that was generated by the
And that's what he's appealing, and the zoning commissioner turned it down, so it's the applicant's appealing it to us.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, anything more that we need to know?
Move the continuance is suggested by staff.
Okay, so I guess I see our attorney is getting ready to say something.
Actually, if you could make your motion to continue it to October 26th at 10:05.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
do that. Include that in the motion, please.
And I still second it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I just see that Mr. Davis in his notes says supply me with future dates. I may pick one that will work. Has someone communicated with him about that?
Yes, I think both Steve and I, we did reach out, give him several dates to choose from. He had chosen October 26th, knowing that we could possibly be up in Tahoe on September 14th. We also asked him if that was possible, and he said he would be out of town on September 14th. So,
thank you.
So we'll be looking at full chairs here in the supervisor's chamber?
well, we'll see what we have going on that during that meeting, so we could either be in Tahoe for that item, or we could be right here in the board chambers again.
Oh, on October 26th, we could be in Tahoe. It's possible.
It could be either way. Yeah, we undecided right now.
Okay. Okay, well, with that, we'll call for the question.
Okay, I have a first with Mr. Sevison, a second with Mr. Moss. So, Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Okuchi?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison? Mr. Moss? Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing more.
Could I ask EJ a question?
Oh, you caught me just.
Hold on to that gavel for a second.
When are we going to be able to do this out there? I've heard a rumor this fall that might happen.
Yeah, so we're working on that. I think, part of the budget that the board would consider final budget in September would be the beginning of the upgrades to that room. So I know we're getting a lot of pressure from our IT folks to get that going, but they have a systematical way of doing that for that building. They have to do it in a number of steps. So that's a long way of saying I don't have a exact time when that's going to happen, but there's a lot of attention to that right now. The last thing, one recent thing we did was started the closed captioning of these hearings. That took precedent over the upgrades, so they just put that into place. So that's actually occurring during this meeting right now, from my understanding. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure to get that done. We're all on board, so. We'd like to see that happen as soon as possible.
Hopefully before the end of the year.
Yeah. Okay, is that it?
Yep.
Meeting's adjourned.
Meeting's adjourned.
Supposed to say that.
Oh, okay.